Hi guys, today's video is going through 3 converting from standard to slope-intercept form examples. So all of these examples are when you're given an equation in standard form, how we would convert them into slope-intercept form. So as a real quick review, we know that standard form is in the form ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are all numbers, and a has to be positive. We know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m represents our slope and b represents our y-intercept. And this is a process from taking it from standard into slope-intercept form. So our first example asks us to take the equation 13x plus y equals negative 15 into slope-intercept form. Because slope-intercept form isolates our y variable, our first step has to be to get rid of our x. In order to get rid of x, we need to do the inverse, which in this case is to subtract 13x to both sides. The 13 and the negative 13x cancel each other out to 0, and we're left with y equals negative 13x minus 15. Here, we know that we cannot combine negative 15 and negative 13 because they are not like terms. Now, we actually have y all by itself at this point, which means we're actually done with this example. Y equals negative 13x minus 15 is our equation in slope-intercept form. Our second teacher example again asks us to convert from standard to slope-intercept form. Our equation is 20x minus 3y equals 10. So again, our first step is going to be to isolate our y by doing the inverse of 20x. The inverse is to subtract 20x to both sides. And our positive 20x cancels with our negative 20x, leaving us with negative 3y equals negative 20x plus 10. Again, we could not combine 10 and negative 20x because they are not like terms. From here, y still has a coefficient in front of it with that negative 3. So in order to get rid of the negative 3 and completely isolate y, we need to do the inverse, which in this case is to divide by negative 3 to both sides. So here our negative 3 cancels to 1, and we're left with 1y, which equals negative 20 over negative 3x plus 10 over negative 3. Now this part gets a little bit tricky because we need to start simplifying our fractions. We know that when you do a negative number divided by a negative number, you end up with a positive. So if we look right here, that negative and that negative will turn into positives, and we're left with y equals 20 over 3x. We also know that when you do a positive number divided by a negative number, your result is a negative number. So here we're going to do minus 10 over 3. Now we would want to simplify 20 thirds and 10 thirds. Luckily, those are already in its simplest form. So this is our final answer, y equals 20 thirds x minus 10 thirds. Now for our very last teacher example, we are asked to convert from standard to slope-intercept form. So here we have 15x plus 18y equals 10. In order to isolate y, our first step is to subtract 15x to both sides. Our 15 and our negative 15 cancel out to 0, and we're left with 18y equals negative 15x plus 10. Again, in order to continue isolating y, we need to do the opposite of this 18y, which will be to divide by 18. Divide by 18. And to divide by 18. So our 18 divided by 18 cancel to 1. We're left with 1y equals negative 15 over 18x plus 10 over 18. And from here, we have to go through the process of simplifying our fractions. Now, negative 15 over 18, we know both the top number and the bottom number can be divided by 3. So if we do that, we do negative 5 over 6. So y equals negative 5 over 6x. And then 10 divided by 18. Both of those numbers can be divided by 2, which will leave us with 5 over 9. If you know how to do the simplifying fractions method on the calculator, that is also just fine. So there's your answer, y equals negative 5/6x plus 5/9. Now there's 2 student examples for you to try on your own. And just in case, there's a little section on calculator tricks and tips. On a TI-84 calculator, if you want to type in a fraction, you're going to click this green alpha button. And then where you would put in equations, it is about 2 or 3 buttons above your alpha button where it says y equals. And you click enter, enter. It'll let you type in a fraction. And then similarly, if you want to simplify the fraction, you'd go through that same process. You type enter, enter, type in your fraction and click it one more time. The answer that pops up will be your simplified fraction. That's all for today, folks. Bye.